Infrastructure deficit. No amount of money is too much to revamp Nigeria's development challenges.
Nineteenth Group Managing Director Mele Kyari assumes office and resolves to make NNPC a global oil company with best practices.
Orientation for new magistrates. Evaluation key in sustaining ethical standards for the judiciary.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, our focus is on checkmating Nigeria's booming population figures.
Is Nigeria's population today just enough, more than enough, or are we outrightly overpopulated, Kingsley?
Well, the other question to ask is exactly how many are we in Nigeria? And these are obviously rhetorical questions because various estimates have been given at different fora with regard to Nigeria's current population. You will recall that the last national population census exercise that Nigeria had was in 2006. But it is the case that Nigeria's population, from various estimates, is ticking off alarm signals everywhere.
And it is indeed uncontrolled population growth rate that has been a reoccurring worrisome weight on the chests of all who care for the development of the nation at different fora across the world, Kingsley.
That's right. Nigeria is said to have an annual population growth rate of 3.2% and a fertility rate of 5.5. And what of course that means is that every year we keep having new figures with regard to Nigeria's population. From a humble figure of around, say, 45 million at independence, Nigeria's population, of course, has escalated to what we have today, with estimates indicating that we're either 198 million or 200.
Just darling around that figure, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. That's right, yeah.
And now with a population rate, of that percentage devoid of human development indices, it should certainly be a source of worry for many who care about this country.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, we find the consequences in terms of the economic pressures that most Nigerians are feeling at this time. Because if your rate of economic growth does not surpass that of the population growth, then you continue to have challenges with regard to the jobs that you have to provide for those who are graduating from schools, with regard to the houses that you have to provide, and indeed. But of course, even more worrisome is the fact that if the current fertility and population growth rates are not checked, there's a likelihood that Nigeria could hit some 400 or more in terms of millions now by the year 2050. And this, of course, will make Nigeria the third most populous nation in the world.
That's a huge number, Kingsley. For some observers, the greatest concern is what are we doing, or what do we intend to do with our increasing numbers in times of productivity, just like countries like India and China have done and are really doing it now?
Well, no doubt about that. Productivity is one thing, but of course, you have to create the right environment for your numbers to be truly productive. We have seen, of course, the young population of the young persons in the country and what the demands are in terms of the system and what is required to be produced.
Exactly, Kingsley, and you're absolutely right. One could also point out another area of contention for our rising population: the overstretched infrastructure. That is where, if they are even existent in some areas, actually.
Well, they exist. Others are broken down and they need to be fixed, and some are being fixed, but the rate, of course, doesn't match the growth rate of the country's burgeoning population. So one question to ask again is, why is Nigeria's population exponential growth not commensurate with our economic and human capital index development? And what are the hurdles for Nigeria to scale in order to, as it were, decelerate the rate of its population growth rate? These, of course, are some of the questions we shall put before our guests in our conversation segment. And it's on that note I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you as always on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Jummai Yusuf. It's always good to have you join us on the program, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, live from Abuja. As always, the complimentary parts to the program shall be brought to you. These include newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and entertainment news. In the meantime, here's the news highlight with Nolin Ebel Ame. Good morning, Nolin.
Good morning, Jummai and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the early morning news. Nigeria has pledged continued support to the troubled North African nation of Libya in its quest towards regaining and sustaining peace, security, and political stability. President Muhammadu Buhari, who met the pledge while granting audience to the head of Libya's government of national accord, Fayez al-Sarraj, on the margins of the AU summit in Niamey, Niger Republic.
We have to make sure that we create livelihoods all across the Lake Chad Basin area. We have to revive the livelihoods. We have to make sure that we reduce the shocks that people are having and that we have more resilient communities in those areas. And you know, I am fully committed to that because you cannot integrate fragile societies. You can only integrate resilient societies and their communities.
With a growing population and infrastructure deficit, no amount of money is too much to revamp Nigeria's development challenges. A statement from the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, said President Buhari, in a bilateral meeting with Vice President of Islamic Development Bank, IDB, asked for support in meeting Nigeria's development challenges. President Buhari thanking the IDB for ongoing interventions in agriculture, trade and investment, rural development and food security in Nigeria, noting that the country will appreciate more support in other critical sectors. Dr. Mukhtar commended Nigeria for signing the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement, saying it was good. The country is now on board the trade deal. While congratulating President Buhari on a successful outing at the AU summit, the IDB Vice President pledged the bank's continued support to development efforts in the country. Renowned journalist and former governor of Ogun State, Chief Olusegun Oshoba, has put his thoughts and experiences in journalism into a book form. The Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, led an array of dignitaries to celebrate the octogenarian journalist and politician.
That confronts our nation and our people can be defeated by the power of unity, the recognition that we are stronger together than apart. Chief Oshoba's life and times has contained a list of battle lines.
We want Nigerians to believe in their country, believe in themselves, and work with elected and appointed officials of the state to make a qualitative improvement in the quality of life.
Governor of Ogun State in 1999, the Vice President.
The 19th Group Managing Director of NNPC, Mele Kolo Kyari, has assumed office with a resolve to make the corporation a global oil company with best practices. That the new GMD also vowed to continue the fight against corruption initiated by his predecessor.
We will deliver the expectations of Nigeria to make this company a great company that all of us will be proud of, that will integrate the oil and gas industry to the rest of the economy and grow this economy within the lifetime of this president.
I feel very much fulfilled, and I must thank Mr. President for actualizing his vision of having smooth transition.
Magistrates in the country are to undergo a continuous evaluation of their conduct and performance to sustain the ethical standards that the judiciary is known for. The acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Muhammad, emphasized this during an orientation program for newly appointed magistrates in the country.
A better magistrate by the time I'm done with the training.
With what the acting CJN has discussed with us, it should shun corruption.
Perform your judicial duties skillfully and expeditiously, without bias or prejudice, and must always remember that justice delayed is justice denied.
Your courts are essentially the taproots of the modern-day judiciary. All these are geared towards inculcating the highest ethical standards, as well as upholding judicial excellence at the magistrate courts.
The Nigerian chapter of the West African Parliamentary Press Corps, WAPSE, has been inaugurated in Abuja. WAPSE is expected to broaden the capacity and scope of parliamentary reportage.
We partner parliaments to promote parliamentary democracy and to deepen good governance. And so we want to support our members to go into specialization in terms of parliamentary reporting.
As the face of governance changes, you find that the operations and activities of the various arms of government also change. And so because we have come to realize that this is the case, we decided to ensure that, the face of parliamentary reporting in the West African sub-region also changes.
I have no doubt that our mass media will rise up to the historical challenge of utilizing developmental journalism towards accelerating the actualization of our people's collective aspirations.
The media, through the knowledge of impacts, is the key to removing citizens from shackles of poverty and putting them on to the path of economic development.
One of the ways to win the fight against corruption is through sensitization. This is one of the reasons the acting chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, visited the Nigerian Television Authority to explore ways to further sensitize the public on the need to shun any form of corruption.
I'm just here to thank you very sincerely for support you have been giving us, but we need more support. Particularly this time around, we are now into the next level, and we will soon be changing gear, and we will face the anti-corruption very vigorously, very seriously, because we need to secure this country in the interest of our children for the next generation.
We in NTA have a duty to support the EFCC, because by supporting the EFCC, we're not doing anything extraordinary. We're just doing what we are created to do.
And on security, Nigeria's Security and Civil Defense Corps, Kaduna State Command, has carried out a mandatory forensic psychological profiling and test on its personnel. This, the state commandant of the Corps, Modu Bunu, says is to arrest the growing cases of human rights abuses among personnel and develop a reliable database.
This exercise is not meant for we chant anybody. It's just to assess the individuals, to know who they are, and then for the organization to know who is to place where and when and how.
The 12th extraordinary session of the African Union in Niamey, in Niger Republic, has come and gone, but its memories will continue to linger in the minds of participants for a very long time. One of such remarkable moments in history was the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement by President Muhammadu Buhari, thereby giving hope and impetus to the realization of one Africa market.
I wouldn't be prouder as a Nigerian, so I just came to tell Mr. President that I'm so delighted with that.
Last year, Mr. President Buhari delayed the signing at Kigali so that he can, in deference to his democratic ideals, consult with the organized private sector, consult with manufacturers, processors, and all those who will be affected by the agreement. So we have gotten wiser, and the consultations no doubt have provided clues and avenues of what we are going to do.
And that concludes the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kins.
Securities and Exchange Commission strategizes to strengthen the capital market as expert highlights benefits following Nigeria's signing of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Details of this and more on Business News with Kunle Ade.
The uncertainty of Nigeria being a signatory to the multi-trillion-dollar agreement was laid to rest when President Muhammadu Buhari signed it at the extraordinary session of the African Union in Niger Republic. Fears being expressed before the signing are that the Continental Free Trade Area will take its toll on major sectors of the Nigerian economy, especially manufacturing and agriculture. An investment promotion expert, Ogbonna Okuku, said there should be no cause for alarm since the president consulted widely before signing.
I see it as something that we need to do. I mean, it was something that everybody have seen that the benefits will definitely outweigh the bad sides.
In another development, the Executive Director News of the Nigerian Television Authority, Mohammed Labo, has conferred with the management staff of the Nigerian Stock Exchange as a follow-up to the recent visit to the headquarters of the NTA, Abuja, to finalize a workable relationship between both parties. And the equities market closed Monday on a positive note as the Nigerian Stock Exchange All-Share Index appreciated by 0.06% to close at 29,287.87 points as against 0.10% depreciation recorded previously. With business news, I'm Kunle Adeyeye.
All right, many thanks, Dad Kunle, for the business package. Next for us, we'll take a look at the front pages of the papers we have this morning.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tiobi, is in the studio. As always, you're welcome. And
Thank
a pleasure
Juma.
to have you join us.
Thank you, Juma. Good morning. Good morning, Kensley. Good morning,
Bayo.
Nigeria.
That's right.
We're talking about the Ghana-Tunisia match.
Bayo, you watched the match last night?
I did. I wonder how on earth that referee saw a handball when the ball touched the jaw of a player, and he said it's a handball. How does the hand equate with the jaw? The hand even never went up. But it's part of the game. Sometimes you have to live with the mistake. Unfortunately, AFCON this year did not have VR. So the opportunity of a second look was denied Ghana.
Yeah, that's right. I thought in general, Jumai, that the officiating last night in the match involving Ghana and Tunisia, the officiating was woeful. I didn't imagine that was going to happen at the continental championship level. I mean, virtually wrong calls. Your fouls are left uncalled, and then the goal that Ghana scored was a clear goal.
It was very clear,
no question about that.
Sad.
It's sad, yes. So of course that made a difference because if that goal had been allowed, they would have made more pressure on the Tunisians. It tended to have taken the shine off the quality of that match.
Exactly.
The Ghanaians dominated. I mean, they also have themselves
from the beginning,
to blame,
actually.
for not doing that. Let's take a look at the front pages of the papers we have this morning. Beginning with the Punch. The Punch is pretty busy, so we'll just run through some of them. And then above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, restructuring, that's one of the headlines there, coming with a kicker. Send Air Rufai panel report to National Assembly. Oshoba advises APC. That story is in greater detail on page 9. Zamfara governor and local government bosses clash over council funds. That's page 12. Insecurity. Celebrities protest at redemption camp. Seek Adeboye's intervention. Details can be found on pages 4 and 5. And 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate. Alleged assault. Abo, that's Senator Abo, arraigned. Pleads not guilty. Granted 5 million naira bail. That's page 12. And Buhari's delay in appointing ministers affecting the economy, that's a claim by the PDP Board of Trustees, page 9. The lead story comes with a kicker: Presidential Election Tribunal article to challenge 11 states' results. And the writer says, INEC ad hoc workers say server was used. That story is in greater detail on page 2. And now below the photograph on the front page, we have other headlines. Police arrest siblings for kidnapping 88-year-old father. That's page 5. Customs officer faces medical test for promoting self to CG. That's Comptroller General. That story is on page 12. That is a human interest story. In a sense, it's also a pretty sad development because let me just take the liberty of reading a few paragraphs from that story, which I said is on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. It says, an assistant superintendent of customs wore the rank of a deputy comptroller general to the headquarters has been sent to face medical examination. He was said to have claimed that he was acting on the directive of President Muhammadu Buhari to assume office of Comptroller General.
Well, that statement has been denied by the spokesperson for the service, the customs service. Actually, yes, it is true. The gentleman had been promoted assistant superintendent of customs, but he adorned himself with the rank of deputy controller of customs, and he walked to the headquarters. And immediately he was cited. Through questions and answers, they evaluated and noticed that he probably had some mental challenges, and they referred him to doctors. So the director of public relations, Joseph Atta, I think is his name, has said that all that has been going on the social media, that the president has asked him to come and take over from the Comptroller General, is just part of the story to make to take advantage of the unfortunate development of the young man. But meanwhile, the National Independent Electoral Commission has said that of all the recommendations it got from the observer missions, only 69 of them are implementable by now because they are administrative ones that they can right away implement. And they have indicated that 21 that are administrative can be implemented immediately. The European Union made 30 of such recommendations, and the NDI and IRI also jointly made 15. All in all, they had 69 recommendations. In fact, in the total, there were 159 observer groups. Only 42 of them, INEC says, comply with the guideline for observers, Chapter 5, that require them to submit report. Therefore, as many as 117 did not submit any report. However, INEC says that for the forthcoming elections in Kogi and Bayelsa State, the administrative component of it will be implemented to ensure that the INEC electoral processes advances forward. However, the Commissioner for the Voter Education also advised that what is germane is that political parties and all stakeholders must consistently play by the rules of the games. And he says that the review of the 2019 election is intended to ensure that 2023 elections are far, far above expectation as far as proficiency and acceptability and transparency is concerned.
We have the Al Jazeera newspaper. I think it's a new paper that has been introduced today. And the bold headlines there say Saraki godson set to flee Nigeria. Security places them on watch as Kwara governor opposes Lai Mohammed's ministerial nomination. You'll find that on pages 11 and 12. And at the bottom plate of the newspaper, AFCON, Nigeria urges FIFA to probe match against Madagascar. Say match was fixed. Betting companies raked in $100 million from match outcome. And that you find that on page 13. How 3 exhibits disappeared within Plateau Tribunal. Details on page 30. Senator Abo, CSO, accept apology. Blames Senate IGP on selective action. You find that on page 6. PDP splitter group moves to impeach Speaker. You find details on page 17. And UNICEF cries out over children suicide bombers. Details on page 15. The Sun newspaper has as its bold headlines, as PDP, Atiku open case at tribunal, fireworks. With a rider with transmitted result to INEC server, say presiding officer technician. Buhari's lawyers reject president's biodata form, accuse Galadima of fighting for personal gains. And the picture message there, Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, middle, former head of state General Abdusalami Abubakar and his wife, Justice Fatima, with former governor of Ogun State, Aremu Olusegun Oshoba, with his wife, Derin Sola, at the book lunch, marking Oshoba's 80th birthday in Lagos yesterday. Rivers Tribunal upholds Governor Wike's victory. Details on page 12, with a rider, governor inaugurates private school accreditation approved committee. Governors seek agenda for FG on Africa Free Trade Pact, with a rider say Nigeria must reap maximum benefits. Details on page 37. And I think that's all on this, on the Daily Sun.
Okay, well, let me return to the Punch and then also take some headlines from the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. Now, back again to the foot of the front page of the Punch newspaper, but we'll take some of those headlines. Deal with subsidy and alien refineries, experts tell new NNPC boss. That's page 25. And protest rocks APC secretariat as Kogi governorship aspirants reject indirect primary. That's page 40. And then another human interest story, the sad one this time also. Corps member who washed hair with sniper dies 10 days to birthday. That story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper. The Corps member was said, a lady was said to have discovered lice in her hair. And then opted to wash the hair using sniper. And now she's passed away. This took place in Osun State. You can find the details of the story on pages 4 and 5. They are so rest in peace. Bayo, you discussed that story, but let me go quickly to the Daily Trust newspaper. Daily Trust newspaper, below the nameplate, and then also the late story, says, all refineries must work before 2023, new NNPC boss says. That's page 3. Assault, Senator Abo gets 5 million naira bail. 19 killed, 7 injured in Kano road accident, page 4. A late story with graphic illustrations as well. Multinational threatens local poultry farmers. That's what the story is talking about there on the front page with a jump to page 5. Bayo.
Let's start with the start story about the young girl who washed her hair with a sniper. You recall that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration provided directives that the 10-liter, the smallest one, should be withdrawn from circulation, particularly in supermarkets and shops, and also our local markets. The alarm at that time was because some young men or young women, out of frustration, were using it to take their own life. Now, this is another dimension. You also will recall that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture did raise alarm that some farmers were using sniper to preserve their beans because so as to stop insects from infesting them. And this has become, is a very toxic chemical that should not be used carelessly. And so the alarm bell is ringing now, and it should be taken very seriously.
I believe, sorry, in this case, I believe this is just hair treatment gone wrong. Yes. Unfortunately, I mean, why she seemed not to have sought expert advice is what is curious. Maybe she just assumed that, I mean, you have any chemical, mix it, and then rub it on your head, and then that will take care of it.
The way they used Sheltox before.
Where they were using some insecticide?
In secondary schools, actually, insecticide. And I believe the easiest thing was to just go to the salon, relax her hair, and they are dead. They can't survive.
I believe that the heat coming from, those of us who don't have enough, much hair, I mean, if we go, your scalp will go, but they will buy. I believe it's the same with you. I'm sorry, this is a serious matter that we are discussing.
Exactly.
But, I mean, yes. Otherwise, you know, for the young ladies, I think it's important that they take a caution, you know, from
the import of I think the publication is to draw attention to young ladies not to go that dangerous path because it has consequences. It's just similar to a gentleman in Australia. They were betting. One argued that you can't eat a wild gecko.
Yes,
and he ate a wild gecko.
Yeah, he died.
And within 10 days, he died. Can you imagine the kind of risk people sometimes take?
That's right. Some bet also on cockroaches.
Yes.
Those are vermins, by the way. Yeah. And I don't see how your immune system can fortify you against whatever things. If you know where cockroaches come out from all kinds of sewage locations and so on and so forth. And also a wild gecko, you know. And in Australia, that's well,
that's gross. Let's now go to the editorial from the Al Jazeera newspaper, and it's on death penalty for bandits and kidnappers.
Yes. Can I quickly draw attention to the promises coming from the new GMD of the NNPC? He has told the nation that he has set a target for the to elevate that organization to a global company. And not only that, they plan to grow production to 3 million barrels a day between now and 2023, as well as increase reserves to 40 billion by the year 2023. Not only that, he has promised by the time President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure ends, all the 4 refineries will not only be functional, but Nigeria will meet the net export requirement of exporting petroleum products. That is quite a challenging agenda to set, and we wish him all the best. Now, talking about the editorial is happening on the essence of capital punishment, death penalty for bandits and kidnapping. It is often said that when you have a desperate problem, sometimes you may need to prescribe desperate challenges and desperate solutions. And the editorial is referring to Taraba State as the latest that have passed the law making death penalty for punishment for kidnapping and abduction of persons. It also draws attention to that in the instances of banditry, which has dominated in the Northwest, Zamfara State has also had that stringent capital punishment for persons who are arrested for instances of banditry. He says that, in fact, Zamfara State is the first, but it is not the first. It may be recalled that about a year and a half ago, kidnapping at schools were very rampant in Lagos, and Lagos State House of Assembly followed by amending the kidnapping and abduction law in Lagos and say where a person is kidnapped and there is a death involved in it, the kidnappers also will be subject to that capital punishment of death penalty. Other ones have very severe punishment and also life imprisonment. It goes to show that the problem of kidnapping, armed robbery, and banditry are as decimating, and therefore governments are now enjoined to provide stern measures to stem them. Though there is also a challenge. You recall that before this last term run out and we started another term again, there are several governors who have many death warrants to sign for persons who were on the death row and have reluctant to sign. So we are, pushing ourselves into a quandary. It's one thing to have death sentence as a punishment. It is another thing to have the courage to carry them out. Particularly that the United Nations,
of God into them.
United Nations is also harping on the fact that capital punishment is also an obsolete, rather life imprisonment should be the vogue around the world.
Well, Bayo, thank you. The state of Texas in the U.S., continues to operate its electric chairs fairly vigorously. And we have a number of states with death penalty on their statutes for kidnapping. Delta, I think Anambra, and I think Edo State as well. They also have that. The most important thing is if the entire judicial process has been exhausted, by a convict and a condemned person, what next are you waiting for, particularly for kidnapping? The instances that we have seen. Bayo, we'd like to thank you. I'm sure tomorrow we'll have enough time, God willing, to discuss matters arising from the African Cup of Nations.
Yes.
Amunike has lost his job in Tanzania.
Yeah, there's 3 coaches now.
Yeah, that's right.
The Egyptian coach and the Ugandan coach have also been craned out.
Heads will roll as usual.
Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria still on the network.
331-0175 and Felix on 0803-308-2375. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
And to kickstart our conversation on this subject matter, let's take this background report by Aisha Uba Ali.
Nigeria's population is fast growing, and reports have it that by 2050, it will have over 400 million people. Many countries like China and India have harnessed its population, but Nigeria is yet to cash in this favorably. A 1994 United Nations Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, amongst other issues, charged nations to meet the educational and service needs of adolescents to enable them deal in a positive and responsible way with their sexuality. But then, how far did Nigeria go to meet the targets? National Planning Commission says as of 2017, Nigeria's fertility rate of 5.5% contends with the limited resources available. Analysts believe the only way to check population explosion is to check population growth through a simple process of child spacing known as family planning. Projections arrive that Nigeria will soon be the third most populous country, with impact on the economy due to overstretched resources and facilities causing issues of instability in the health sector, as the country still depends on aid from development partners. Lack of concrete planning with the limited resources will in turn impede any significant economic transformation, increase crime rate, insecurity, unemployment and poverty among other burdens. Population problems, according to observers, have been identified predominantly in rural communities and among low-income families. Aside the issue of family planning, what other measure can the country adopt to check its population growth? How can the country utilize its population for positive gains? What role would government play in achieving and sustaining targeted goals related to population and advancement? How strong is the advocacy for the populace to make informed choice and population control? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will answer to these questions shortly.
All right, thank you very much, Aisha Obali, for that background. I will have with us here in the studios three guests. First, we'd like to welcome the Director of Census at the National Population Commission, Mr. Usman Kolakpo. Mr. Kolakpo, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria again.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Also here with us in the studios, we have the United Nations Population Fund Assistant Representative for Nigeria, that's Mr. Osaiti Adorin. Mr. Adorin, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. And last but not the least, would like to welcome also Dr. Ejike Orji. Dr. Ejike Orji is Chairman, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning, and also the CSO Focal Point FP 2020 for Nigeria. Dr. Orji, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
All right, so let's begin the conversation first with the Director of Census, National Population Commission. Another population day is only a couple of days away, and Good Morning Nigeria has taken on the topic of Nigeria's population on a number of occasions in the past. So the question to ask first is, what is happening to Nigeria's population? Are we decelerating, or is still growing exponentially, creating all kinds of concerns?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Definitely the Nigerian population is still growing, and it's growing very fast. For now, on the average of about 2.6% growth rate, which is very high, compared with all standards that we can talk about, because we already have a very huge population. So growing at that fast rate needs to be managed.
Sorry, the figure that we always had, and we did say that while we were introducing to this program, was that Nigeria's population growth rate was about 3.2%. Now you're saying 2.6. Where is this 2.6 coming from?
Yeah, you know, from the background, you said maybe by the year 2050 we have up to 40 something. The current growth rate that we have is 3.2. That is it. But we are looking at on the average before that 2050. If we go on that 2.6 on the average, because definitely it will come down, and that is still very high on the higher side. But for now, the growth rate between the intercensus growth rate between something like 1991, 2006, and currently is about 3.2. That is the estimate that is being used. But we are looking at a situation whereby by that 2050, if we are going at this rate, and because the fertility rate is still about 5.2, 5.3. So even the rate at which it's going is not all that encouraging, because we expect the fertility rate to have dropped below that below 5 points, but now it's still above 5.3%.
Okay, so again, for purposes of economic planners, who are also watching this program, what you are saying is that Nigeria's population growth rate remains at 3.2. Yes. And prospectively, you are hoping that it can decelerate to 2.6. That's prospectively, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fertility rate, we also heard in the past was 5.5, but now you are saying 5.3. But let's bring in the other guests to also share their views with regard to the numbers of Nigeria's population. First, July2019 Andore.
Yeah, thank you very much. We can see that this morning we're talking about figures. And I think one of the greatest challenges that we have is that we are basing all the figures we are hearing on projection. Nigeria is overdue for a population census. So what we have are mere projections. And it depends on who is making the projections and what you want to use the projection for. But from what we know from the National Population Commission and the NDHS, we are still growing at 3.2%. That's extremely high. It means that in 18 years or thereabout, the population of Nigeria will double. And if the population of Nigeria doubles in 18 years, for us to be where we are today, the level of development, it means we have to double all the infrastructures in order to be where we are today. So it's neither here nor there. It's just that from the point of view of the population growth rate, we need to do something about it and do something about it very fast. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to improve the standard of living of the people of Nigeria.
Okay, Mr. Ejike, Nigerians naturally, depending on where they come from, decide, hey, this is my life. I want to live it like this. We are not talking statistics. Should we be concerned? Should we be afraid? By 2030, we are looking at an estimate of 450 million Nigerians. Do we have enough to sustain this population?
We should even be very afraid as we speak. Let me give you a small narrative. This was narrative I gave to people at NIPS about 2 months ago when I was invited to speak to them. I started my conversation by saying, in 1977, I was a young medical student at Enugu. I had a car. My sister and her husband just got back from England, working at University of Jos Teaching Hospital. 4 p.m. I was young, brash, reckless, like any young man. I jumped into my car and was driving to Jos, 4 p.m. from Enugu. I drove throughout the night without a care. Got to Akwanga, started feeling sleepy. A little after Akwanga, I felt so sleepy, I parked my car and slept. Woke up 7 a.m. and continued my journey, 1977. 1992, 15 years later, I was on the same road from Enugu to Jos. A kilometer after that particular spot, there was a queue of vehicles. What was the problem? There was an armed robbery attack in a place called Hawunkibo. That's just before you get to Jos, the big forest and hill. After I asked them for how long, they said 2 hours. I said nobody was there, let's go. I told my driver, let's go. When they followed us, after all, when we got there was a barricade, which we cleared and continued. 2019, like I said, 2 months ago, I was invited by NIPS to come speak to them on the accountability issue on health from CSO's perspective. The directing staff asked me, GK, how do you want to come to Jos? Do you want to fly to Lagos and we'll fly you to Jos? Or do you want to come by road and we'll give you armed escorts? I said I'll go by air. They couldn't get a flight, I had to go by road. And they told me when you get to Kefi, call us, we'll position a vehicle at Fadan Karushi. When I drove to Kefi, called them, got to Akwanga, and they told me we had to stop. And I kept on asking until I got to Fadan Karushi and stopped. When I stopped and I looked around, that was the same spot I stopped 42 years ago, slept without a care. Eventually, they sent 4 armed police officers with bulletproof vests to escort me into Jos. This is a story of Nigeria. From a beautiful, peaceful country to a country with slight insecurity, with pure insecurity. We are going to anarchy. So when you tell me what is the future portend, it's anarchy. The only thing that has actually changed is our population. In the last census, like you said, was 2006, and we had 140 million. Now the projections put us at 201 million. That means we added 61 million people in just 13 years. It's trouble. So we have all the demographic crisis indicators. One, very huge population bulge. 64% of our population is under the age of 25. 45% under the age of 15. There's a high level of immigration. Just the other day, 9 Nigerians were killed in a migrant camp in Libya. And these are unskilled labor. We're not talking about skilled labor that is living every day. Finally, we have nationals killing nationals. It started with OPC in the southwest, militancy in the south, kidnapping in the southeast, a religious crisis on the plateau, Boko Haram in the northeast, banditry in the northwest, headers, farmers clash all over the country. The thing is that we have a young population, largely unemployed, largely unemployable too, for real skills, except maybe agri sector. Idle, they need food, they need love, they need sex, they need everything. Sexual violence has gone up so high as we speak because of it. Mischief makers can recruit them because they are there, doing nothing. Criminals can recruit them, kidnappers can recruit them, politicians can recruit them, all right? Religious zealots can recruit them. So this is the problem we have right now in our hands. And like we're saying, if we do not stop, everybody says that China, India, there's no comparison because those people slowed down their growth rates, invested massively, appropriate, relevant education to those young people. They earn income, they increase the GDP. But I'm happy that we have the demographic dividend office in the vice president's office. That means the government is looking at it in a very, very serious way. But we need more action to activate the potential that we have.
So you're saying that family planning should be everybody's business now?
It should be everybody's business, especially at the sub-national level. The federal government is purchasing commodities. And let me also tell you what happened this year. The budget for family planning, the CSOs successfully advocated years ago. We got $3 million. UNFPA is the one purchasing family planning commodities, and development partners, USAID, DFI, they put in the pool. This year, last year, the Buhari government added another $1 million, making it $4 million. That is counterpart, not all the money. This year, to our shock, the money was reduced to $980-something thousand. We lost 80-something% of this thing. And we already have a demographic crisis, and we're not paying attention to increasing the family planning budget. Meanwhile, our family planning needs this year is $26 million. And we only provided $980-something thousand. So what this means, they do forward purchase for us. The commodities we are going to use next year, they'll pay for it this year. So we're not really seriously in trouble here, even though there are some shortages. But next year it will be disaster because there won't be any commodities, so to speak, unless the development partners in their goodness decide to make up the shortfall that we didn't put on the table.
Okay, right, Dr. Ejike, thank you very much there for your comments. Let's bring in again the Director of Census National Population Commission, Mr. Usman Kolapo. Mr. Usman Kolapo, I mean, when you sketch out the various scenarios are pretty scary. No question about that. What is the role of the National Population Commission in all of this? Is it merely to be taking statistics of new deaths and new bets?
Yeah. First, let me go with what my colleagues have said, especially Mr. Dan. First, one of the main functions of the Population Commission is to get the demographic statistics of the country, which include census, birth registration, and all. First, to plan, you must know what you have. And that's the main. And to also advise government on population issue. That's the major function of the commission. But the situation we have now, just like my colleague have said, we have about 70% of our population about below the age of 30. 70%, which is huge, and the mothers of tomorrow are already here. So we must do something about it, but it is not too scary. If you take something like a country like Saudi Arabia, as of 1995, they also have a fertility rate that goes over about 5 children per woman. But today, the same Saudi Arabia has about 2-point-something% fertility rate. So if there is concerted effort, and it is a business for everybody, not only government, for everybody to know that we have problem at hand which we must solve. Because when you have 70% of your population and it's still growing at that rate, the doubling period is just here. You can imagine between 2006 and now, you have over 60 million added. That is almost like creating another country already. If we go at this rate, there is no way, just like Mr. Danry have said, to maintain the current situation, which is not acceptable by all standards, because we want to improve our life. We want our children's life to be better than ours. But even to maintain the current situation, it means you need more resources. And if in 20 years, 23 years, you have doubled your population, then it means you need to double your resources to even stay at this standard. So effort must be made, and everybody must accept that there is need to do something. Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, so many other countries have done something, even Morocco, to bring down their population thresholds. It will continue to grow, but it should be at a pace that can be managed. It is not to say, oh, the population will not grow. It will grow, but the growth rate should be managed, and it should be everybody's business, not only government, the individual, the NGOs, and we should be aware that in any country, without taking your demography into your planning, I don't think that planning will succeed, and we must be aware of that.
Okay, Mr. Usman Kolapo, thank you. We'll return to you. Mr. Osaitin Adore, I've been looking at the numbers that we're reading out here. In 2006 to 2019, we've added 60 million. That's more than the population of South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Botswana, and Namibia all combined. All these are countries on the African continent. What is the view of the UNFPA in assessing Nigeria's population growth rate and what needs to be done, perhaps urgently, in order to, again, decelerate the pace of growth?
Well, the view of the UN is not different from what is being expressed. One thing, as you say, is that we have policies in Nigeria, and those policies spells out some of these things that we are talking about. But you see, the dilemma sometimes is that we have what we may call lack of policy alignment, like the example that Dr. Oji just gave. In 2017, Nigeria joined other African countries to domesticate the roadmap for demographic dividend. And one of the things that Nigeria said they would do is to ensure that family planning is available to those who need it, that they have the information to be able to get it and use. 1 out of every 4 women in Nigeria that needs family planning does not have it. You see, sometimes when we argue, so the people don't like family planning, it's religious, it's all that and all that. The truth of the matter is that there are people that require family. 27% of Nigerian women that wants to use family planning, they don't have it. And then we come with a situation that is just painted. In one way, we are saying that, okay, we want to be able to achieve demographic dividend. By the way, it's restructuring our population in such a way that we have more producers than consumers. That is what the Asian tigers have done. It's not about stopping birth. It's about having the children the time you want to have them. That's the position of UNFPA. And it's a human right. It's my right to be able to determine the number of children I want to have. And I should get the information to take that decision, and then the services to be able to actualize my decision. So in a nutshell, the position of UNFPA is that the rate at which this population is growing is too high. Something can be done. It's not rocket science. People have done it before. The Asian tigers, they achieved it in 30 years. We can copy and achieve in 10 years. We can provoke demographic dividend in this country by making services available, educating the young people. You know that it's in this country, our girls, women, that forms almost 50% of the population, they are relegated. They are the ones that will drop out of school. They are the ones that will get pregnant before they are 15. They are the ones that will be raped and dehumanized. They are the greatest casualties in what is happening in the humanitarian setting in the Northeast. So it's like somebody having two hands and one hand is cut off. So for us in UNFPA, there must be gender parity. There must be the empowerment of women. Women should be able to contribute to the economy. And a woman that is pregnant every year, I don't know how she's going to be able to contribute. It is not their fault. It's not the fault of the woman. In any case, even the mortality rate for children is so high. The human being is a rational human being. If I say I want to have 3 children, and I know if I have those 3 children, they will live, I'll have 3. But if I know that if I have 3 children, they may not live, I probably want to have 6 and gamble. Maybe by the time, at the end of the day, you know, I'll have 3 children. My mother had 8 children. 5 of us lived. It's 2 of us that is remaining today. So the human being is a rational human being. And so people begin to procreate. And then maybe we can even say that the medical situation now is a bit better than when we were growing. So you find out that you want to have 3, you end up having 5 because the children had lived. So we need to provide services. We need to educate our women. We need to have policies that are complementary. We can't say we want to provoke demographic dividend in Nigeria and reduce our budget for family planning by 80%. More than 80%. It doesn't just work. You know, so we need to make sure that we practice what we preach and what we want to do, and then pursue them consistently. That way we'll achieve it. It's not, I mean, like I said, it's not rocket science. Other countries did before. We are quick to give the example of Malaysia. They came and took some nuts from here, and today we are still, and all of that. It wasn't by accident. It was deliberately done. Demographic dividend is not accidental. It has to be planned for. It has to be provoked, and it has to be followed consistently.
Why is it, and the question is going to Dr. Ejike, why is it that except for the seasonal celebration of population day, population activities, and references to Nigeria's population growth rate, there seems to be the absence of political will, tiers of government, arms of government, in catalyzing public opinion towards recognizing the harm that the country faces on account of its rapid population growth. What have you observed? How can we therefore, in the circumstance of our population numbers, engage, key political actors to say, look, this cannot be political suicide if you took on this subject matter?
Yeah. Yes, I liked what he said about policies. Nigerians have the best policies, I will say, even in the African continent. But the problem is the alignment of those policies, with things that should happen on the ground. And I'll give you perfect examples. Has the government done something to say, They are paying attention to the population growth rate. Yes. But what we have done, have we actioned, or when we say done, that means in terms of policy, but have we actioned them? No. Now, I'll give you specific examples. In 2012, there was a London summit on family planning. The world came together, and they focused on 69 countries of the world, and they said the poorest, and they used a benchmark of $2,500 per capita income in those countries. Any countries below that is recruited. So Nigeria was recruited because our income per capita was below $2,500. The only country that was not in that kind of, should I say, pocket, but decided to join was South Africa. They joined, or willingly joined, but not that they met that benchmark. Now, in that London summit, it was agreed that each country should make commitments. Nigeria made a commitment, and the commitment Nigeria made was that we are going to reduce or increase our contraceptive prevalence rates, modern methods, to 27% by 2020. Those commitments Nigeria made, we felt should be actioned. When we come back here, there are 4 major ministries that participated in that conversation. One was the Federal Ministry of Health, which is the lead organization, Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning, and then Federal Ministry of Women Affairs. Now, as we speak, it's only Federal Ministry of Health that you see in the front talking about family planning. Now, when we look at the commodities, if you say you want to do something, you put your money where you want your mouth to be. We are still largely donor dependent, even though incrementally from 0 to 3 million to 4 million, but unfortunately this year again we'll see the big setback to $985 or so thousand. So it's not aligned to the policy. Then the other one is, even the family planning, Nigeria on her own, before the London summit, said we are going to increase our family planning prevalence rate to 36% by 2018, last year. But after that London summit, we found it wasn't possible. We went back and rebased it to 27%. They have just given us the new NDHS. All of us, our mouth were watering based on some statistical data had been produced. Some said 14, some said 17, some said 19. We were looking at our CPR will be at 20%. Unfortunately, to all our disappointments and in fact gloomy faces when we saw that, when they released the data, our contraceptive prevalence rate is 12%. So it's remained between 10 to 12 for more than 15 years.
What is the implication of that?
The implication is the result of this rapid population growth. That means women are not getting it. And then if we even say, don't do anything, just make sure that the women who say they want family planning, they get it, will be up and going. Now, the next important thing here is that we are also not investing in the real sector. There's a demographic dividend office. Like I said, there is now policy again. And like he was trying to also say, for you to have demographic dividend, there are 5 clear things you must do. Number 1, reduce fertility rates. Number 2, invest in your youthful bulge. Appropriate and relevant education. Number 3, create an environment of peace, tranquility, and justice, which will now open up the space for those young ones to get jobs. When they get jobs, they start earning, they save, you inflate your GDP. Number 3, your healthcare sector must be optimal. That will reduce death rates and reduce maternal and infant and child mortality. All of that we're not doing. We rank 187 over 190 in healthcare ranking globally as we speak. We're only better than 3 countries. And this didn't start today. We started sliding 40 years ago. Nobody stopped that trend. Finally, the little things that we are doing on family planning is actually from the federal level. The states, the subnationals, the states and local governments are actually, and LET is on the concurrent legislative list. The federal government cannot prescribe to the states. And that was why just about a week ago, we went to see the Governors Forum, went to see the DG, and said it is time the states take up their responsibility. Because what is happening, UNFPA buys commodities for us, and the money is given to them by the federal government, our counterpart supports, and then they will now ship the commodities to the states. But what we see in some states, they even provide resources to take it from the warehouses to the service delivery site is a monumental task. In some states, even when it's provided, they don't even provide the consumables and supplies that will make it possible for the women to get the services. And what I mean here is, if you want to insert an IUCD into a woman's womb, you need sterile instruments, you need gloves. But now, you've supplied the IUCD, no gloves, no sterile instruments. How will you insert it? So the commodity is there, and women are not getting it. And that's why there's a very high unmet need. So this is the problem that we have.
Well, the question also, fine, are the CSOs engaging state and local governments on this issue?
Yeah.
And if you are, what kind of frustration are you meeting with, and how might those frustrations be overcome?
I will say, before now, we concentrated our efforts at the federal level. But maybe about a year or so ago, we now decided to be going down. Just like I said, the visit we made to the Governors Forum is to use the Governors Forum because there's no need visiting individual states. If we can catch all the governors where they sit and then give them this information, make presentations to them for them to see how they can even benefit. Because this is, you have to show me what is on the table for me to be able to buy it. There are modeling. There's a presentation called Rapid. If you see that model, you see why Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, they have left us. You get the point. So we felt that we are now going to activate our advocacy working groups in the states to start engaging the local governments. And we like what the federal government has done. The president has directed the accounts should be directly wired to the local governments. So at least local governments will be able to have their own resources. Then the other one is the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, which came from the National Health Act. At least this government has actioned it by making sure the resources were provided, even though only 25% of the last year's budget is what was actually able to be used. So if all that pots of money are made available, family planning services can be given at the grassroots. So it is to recruit the governors and the local government chairmen to make sure that they also invest in family planning, because it is their women. The federal government doesn't have any, actually. It's only in the federal tertiary institutions that the federal government manages. The others are states and local governments. So those services at the local level is supposed to be actioned by the governors. So we are calling on the governors to do more, much more than they are doing right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor.
I'm sorry, let me just, the UNFPA, I don't know what level of interaction you have with the Office of the Vice President, where you say the Demographic Dividend Office is domiciled. Dr. Ejike Oji is telling us that, look, they've approached the Governors Forum, but the Vice President's office also superintends the National Economic Council. These days, there are a number of issues that emerge from the National Economic Council meeting, but less so about the demographic dividend that otherwise should be a critical factor in framing economic policies. Is there something missing here in terms of introducing the subject of demographic control or demographic dividend or population issues based on what their experiences have been with the CSOs, through the Office of the Vice President and then the National Economic Council?
Yes, UNFPA is providing technical assistance to the Office of the Vice President to ensure that the know-how of how this is supposed to be done is provided. The roadmap was developed by all stakeholders, and the Office of the Vice President led, and UNFPA provided the technical assistance. Beyond that, UNFPA also work with states. And some states, well, as UN, we work with states at their request. Because that's the modality with which the UN works. What we do sometimes to encourage them is to pay advocacy visits and tell them the importance of what we are trying to sell. And then when they invite us, then we go provide technical assistance. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to mention specific states, but there are some states that have taken the issue of demographic dividend, and they are beginning to integrate it into their planning processes, and it shows. I mean, from the gains they have had in the last 3 years or so. I think what we need to do more, it's more of advocacy. Let the people see the importance, because sometimes we think it's easy. You know, why will you plan without knowing the people you are planning for? It's like a father. Somebody comes to me and say, your son in America says you should bring school fees. I will tell him I don't have any son in America because I know where my children are. But that's exactly what we are doing. At the micro level, it may sound funny, but that's what we are doing as a country, because we do not know the number of people we have. We do not know where they are. We do not know how they are distributed, the age, and all of that. So we need scenarios like Dr. Oji was telling us, to show that if we do certain things, this is where we are going to get to. And that is some of the advocacy tools that we are using with the states. We've succeeded with about 2 or 3 states. Others are on the pipeline. We think that it's not enough to do it at the federal level, because at the federal level is basically policy and the kind of things we are doing now. But with time, we can even go to the local government level, because as we begin to get funds to local government chairmen directly and for them to implement, we will get to that level. It's very simple to conceptualize, but it's difficult for policymakers to take, because sometimes the interpretation is that when you do that, you're trying to limit the number of people within a geographical space. And if you limit that, then you probably not get the kind of resources that you get from the port and all that and all that. But that's neither here nor there, because the states that are making progress in Nigeria don't get all their funds from the federal government. The internally generated revenue, it's making the bulk of the money they are using, because they have people that are empowered. You will need to empower. You know, the Nigerian population is growing. Growth is not even the problem. The problem is that we are growing in the wrong places. We are growing in the wrong places. We are too dependent. The population we have is too dependent. So a few people are working and more people are consuming, by reason of age, by reason of unemployment and underemployment. I don't want to say how many people you are feeding beyond the number of children you have.
Yeah,
but
when the phone rings, you say our family.
Yes. You don't get the alert.
Yes.
You know, the alert, when you get your salary, the alert keeps going out.
Yes.
So if you empower the people, empower the women, empower the young people, let them be able to contribute to their family well-being. It's as simple as that, but people look at the other way. Oh, if we begin to give them the means to limit the population, we're saying it's not population control, actually. It's population management. Okay? I like to give micro-level examples. If, for instance, I'm a civil servant and I earn, my salary is 30,000, I know how many children I can take care of. If tomorrow God blesses me and I come to the 3 million level, I can decide to have more children because I can take care of them. Same thing with the states. Manage the population that you have so that they are productive. Okay, and I can't stop emphasizing the issue of women.
Yes.
Women are...
But is it just a woman thing?
No, I mean,
what about the men? Well, woman cannot take a decision on her own,
I think. What I'm even saying,
yes.
Male involvement is very important.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that they are really, really disadvantaged when it comes to employment, when it comes to holding important positions in government and out of government. They cannot take decisions of themselves. It may surprise you to know that some women in Nigeria, before they can even take contraceptives for their own body, they have to take permission from their husbands.
That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, that's not fair. It's not human right. Somebody should be able to determine what he or she does with her body, with the consent of the partner. Maybe because they have to plan together. It's the woman that dies during childbirth. Since we've been here, about 20, 30 women will have died in the process of giving birth. It's unacceptable. At the end of today, 111 women will have died in the process of giving birth. It's unacceptable. Many of them not because they want to die, it's because they get pregnant They don't know how to space. They don't have the means to space. They don't even know how to do it. So when I talk about women, I know what I'm talking about. They are the ones at the receiving end of this.
Okay, is that the reason why we are, revisiting the unmet goals of 1994 International Conference on Population and Development in Cairo, where 179 governments adopted that reproductive health and gender equality are essential for achieving sustainable development goal? Why are we revisiting it 25 years later?
Thank you very much. Because we have made some gains in 25 years. We've made some gains globally. And you know what that does is that aggregates tends to hide specifics. For instance, the total fertility rate in the world in 1994 was 5 globally. 5 children per woman. Today is 2.5. That is where we really want to go. Replacement level globally. In Nigeria, it's still 5.5. Globally, the number of women that died during childbirth has reduced by half in 25 years. But in Nigeria, we still have over 100 women dying daily. It's like an aircraft. If an aircraft crashes today, there'll be an uproar. But nobody sees the number of women that are dying. And so we are not doing anything about it. So some gains have been made. And what UNFPA is doing as the lead agency, the lead UN agency, because UNFPA mandate is from that program of action that was agreed by 179 countries in Cairo, and Nigeria was one of those countries, to say, okay, now we have some gains, but there's an unfinished business. There's still too much violence. Gender-based violence. Too many people are being caught for no reason at all. The rape incidents is increasing. Part of the population problem we're having. So what we are saying and what we've been doing as UNFPA for some time, yesterday we officially launched it in Nigeria with the State of the World Population 2019, the unfinished business. For many people, the dream of Cairo is still unrealized. And want to draw attention to what we agreed to in Cairo 25 years ago. And ultimately in Kenya, in November 14th, 12th to 14th, the world will come together again, meet the head of states and civil society and all of that, to reaffirm that we have an unfinished business here. And to say that for us to be able to achieve the sustainable development goals, what the ICPD said is central. And what it says essentially is that before that time, maybe I should do some history. Yearly from the year 1954, we have what we call the Population Conference. And before 1994, the Population Conference, they come together and then they say, how do we manage our population? How do we reduce the population? And of course, many countries started to have policies like one-child policy, two-children policy, and all of that and all of that. It didn't work. And that's why I don't talk about population control. It doesn't work, it has not worked, and it will not work. The right to have a child is your right. Nobody, no government, to tell you to have 2 children or 3 children. It doesn't work, and in any case, it's against the human rights. And so in 1994, the people came together and said, this has not worked. Instead of counting people, let the people count. So let us develop the human being. Let us make sure that women are educated. Let us make sure that they are employed. Let us make sure that young children are empowered. Let us make sure that the men are gainfully employed. So the focus is on the person instead of on the number. So when people begin to say that, oh, we have large expanse of land, 200 million is not too big a number for Nigeria. That is not the conversation. That shouldn't be the conversation. The conversation is at the rate at which we are growing, 3.2%. The economy is growing at 2.1%, at least in the first quarter of this year. How? So that's what we're going to reiterate when we meet in Kenya sometime in November this year.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Osaiti Adore. Let's bring in again the Director of Census at the National Population Commission, Mr. Usman Kolakwa. Mr. Usman Kolakwa, earlier you cited the examples of Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, and others that have been able, within the space of a couple of decades, manage their population. What is it that they did right?
Yeah, if you look at what my colleague have been saying, like access to contraceptives and all other things, this is something, the world is now a global village. This is something that anybody can access. They have increased their contraceptive level, and also they have seen the dignity of the human being and allow people to take decision. Just like we have been saying, it is not about population control. It's about the population management. First, they allow people to identify themselves and know that demography, the number of children I have and all other things has an impact on me before you talk about government. With that, people now take decision on their own. Just like we have been saying, the first impact is on the woman. But when it comes to decision taking, it's not only the woman. That's where we should also advocate for the men also. And in Nigeria also, there have been improvements. But just like I've said, the devil lies in the details. Globally, we said the TFR has dropped from 5 to 2 point something. In Nigeria also, there are differences between regions. And these are the areas, just like Dr. Oji have said, there is need to engage the subnational levels because it is not the same rate at which the contraceptive level usage or child spacing. Because what we try to preach is too early. Having a child that is giving birth before the age of 18 should be discouraged. That is too early. Too close. Not gapping, not giving enough gap between one child and the other. It's also dangerous. Too late, because these are high-risk behavior. Getting to the age of 40, 45, and still the medical people will tell you the risk involved. So by the time the individual know the risk that is involved, definitely every woman being wants to have a better life. They can take that decision. But I will still emphasize that we should go to the subnational levels and ensure that we understand the implication of our population and its impact on our own life and the life of the nation generally. Because if some are doing it well and some are lacking behind, definitely it will affect all of us. Globally, it has effect on the global economy and the standard of living.
Okay, thank you very much, Usman Kolak. But I have the temptation to still stick with you to explore an area of strategic communication. How were the messages framed? If you have an idea, say in Saudi Arabia, Iran, or Iraq. These are Muslim countries. So how did they overcome the religious barrier, assuming there was any such religious barrier, towards more efficient population management?
Yes, there are religious barriers, but the issue of culture, because it is not totally, I wouldn't say it is totally religious. It depends on how we interpret the strategies that are being brought. And it should be homegrown. We should first of all understand what is the implication of this. Do God actually say we should kill ourselves? Definitely no religion will say yes to that. The first thing is we don't want people to commit suicide. We don't want people to commit illegal abortion. But if you allow people to understand the implication of rapid population growth and you want to abide by the religious tenets, you will be able to do something like what we call child spacing. Like if you could read the ICPD Cairo 94, you will discover that even the Catholic was more hard on the use of contraceptives more than the Muslim community because they believe in abstinence. But is it possible? And if you cannot abstain, then do something. The first thing is that they were able to preach to their people and allow the people to know that if we go at this rate, there will be a problem for us. Just like in Saudi Arabia, they said, one of those things I can still remember is that we left the stone age not because of lack of stone, but because of development. Stones are still there, the caves are still there, but people doesn't live in the cave.
Yes.
Not because the stones have vanished, but because of development and all of that things. So it is now left for us as a nation to also come to people that mold opinion and also educate them. That is the first instance. We need to also educate people that mold opinion and allow them to realize the implication that what you are trying to prevent, take for example, the crime rate at which we are, there's no religion that will accept the level of which the crime rate is. And if you allow the religious leader to understand that if this thing is not done, what you want to prevent, you will even bring something more. There will be crime, just like Dr. Oji have said. In northern Nigeria, I can still remember maybe in the 70s and in the 80s. We drive, we were in Lagos with Mr. Adari, and I was on assignment in Maiduguri, if I can tell you this story. When we are moving, we're going by car. We will drive throughout the night in the northern Nigeria. And we say by the time it's getting to morning, we will be able to get to the southern part. But today, what do we have? And unless we realize that some of these things come from our demography, unless we open our eyes and know that, yes, this population, the rate at which our population have grown, has contributed to some of the problems we are having at hand. And the only way we can resolve it is to stem the rate at which we are growing. We are not saying we should stop growing, but we should stem the rate at which we are growing. If I can explain what he was talking about, dependency ratio. One person is working. There are other 10, 15 people that are not working. Yoruba will say, Uluwokan, Utosimefa, Utosimbogun. Even that is one rich person and 20 poor people surrounding him. All of them are poor. So unless we understand, and the opinion molders must be educated, must be made to realize that our demography is part of our problem. And Nigeria will continue to grow, the population will continue to grow, and to achieve the demographic dividend, not that we have achieved the dividend of our demography. No. To achieve it, we must do certain things. And one of them is to allow the woman to realize the implication of having two close children, not spacing them, and to also realize that giving birth at certain age is not for the health of the child and for the health of the mother.
Thank you.
National Orientation Agency, in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back. Now we have some tweets, and Nigerians are asking questions and talking. So we'll read the tweets now, and our guest will comment on it. Kingsley.
All right, Law Alpha says the first tweet that we are taking. So research has shown that in a climate where sources of excitement and fun are rare, virtually non-existent, the only available source of fun would be sexual exercise without taking into cognizance the consequences. So governments should provide more recreational centers.
Mike Anyako tweeted, I have previously commented on NTA-GMN that population boom is not part of our challenges. Population is power, wealth, strength, confidence, etc. Build industries and also provide basic amenities in our various hinterlands. Who would like to stay in our cities that are overcrowded?
Now, Quora Connect has this tweet. It's high time Nigeria started regulating the high population growth rate, considering the disparity between the nation's GDP and its population growth rate. To start with, I think the system of vasectomy wouldn't be a bad idea. Government needs to do something.
I don't think it will be a choice people will pick, you know. And Dele Jack Solomon tweets, remember that huge, rapidly growing population is not necessarily a source of national strength. We must check this trend. It is unfortunate that Nigerians has no population policy that would limit births, and Nigerians have traditionally valued large families. Yet, the country's rapid population growth, especially in urban areas, poses difficult economic, social, and public health challenges. We must look into it.
Well, this one is from Habila Zakshil, still advocating the system of vasectomy. But quickly, Festus Akimboyewa says, so far, successive governments have been complacent in checkmating our booming population. Sadly, our unsustainable population will continue to rise until a positive strategy is put in place to address it.
And Sani Michael Omokaji tweets, booming population without corresponding standard of living portends great danger to our economy, lives and properties. If we must get it right, we must henceforth control our birth rate.
This one is coming from Cecilia Okoroma. It says there's need to sensitize our youth on the dangers of a population boom. Have children you can't cater for, and then you live in perpetual misery.
And Chris Simon tweets, medical personnel, stakeholders should enlighten people, especially women, on the essence of family planning. Giving birth to dozens of children without providing for them is a threat to peace in the society. Area boys, hoodlums, and every form of criminality in our societies as a result of increasing numbers.
Now, this is coming from Adeni Ayola. It says the population of Nigeria is growing geometrically while the available resources are in arithmetic progression. There is need, therefore, to check overpopulation because we don't have resources to show for it.
And Omar Bolahan Babs has a long tweet here, but I'm just going to pick some aspect. Checking the country's population seems an impossible mission, but not unsurmountable. Government at all levels have got a lot to work to do, particularly at the hinterlands. A lot of awareness and sensitization is required to change the narrative. The lack of education is contributory, and drastic measures are needed to solve this eminent time bomb. Our politicians must be schooled that the age where population increase is seen by many in Nigeria as the key of control. Political power and resources should be discarded and a proactive approach adopted in Nigeria.
All right, let me take this last one that I would like to read. This is from Akeju Olagbaju. It says 3.2 growth rate is high, and it means that agriculture must grow at a minimum of 3.5 to sustain the population. Now, if the projection is right, placing Nigeria at the upper quartile of population density, hence it poses challenge for food and infrastructure.
Exactly.
So those are the quotes that we want to take in the meantime, and then go very quickly to our guest, Dr. Ejike Oji. Two issues. One, the male side in the, if you like, the equation of population management. Mr. Osaiti Adore has spoken extensively about, you know, how women are at the receiving end and what they need to do. But there are some, you know, who will also point to what we seem to have in Nigeria, a certain male recklessness or a male lack of responsibility in population management. You say you don't get the permission of your spouse for contraception, and then your husband says, look, I'm going to take another wife, you know, I'm going to take another woman, you know, and then have babies that you are unable to cater for. Why has messaging in particular not been directed at the male spouse or the male being with regard to, you know, the complementary responsibility in managing our population?
Yes, I would say the root cause, first of all, is I always talk about what is the philosophical issue here. Have Nigerians agreed that population is an issue? If they agree it's an issue, then that means on the level of the household, then people will start looking at how can we mitigate the consequences of this huge population. Culture is still driving a lot of habits that we have as human beings in Nigeria. Take, for instance, you all go to church, come back, for us Christians that go to church. When you get home, the son sits in the parlor watching television. And if the girl child automatically will go to the kitchen to cook and bring food to the table, all right? And then when there is a sexual violence in any community, if it's the man, they say, you know, men will be men. You get the point. And but nobody thinks about the girl child that has been violated. You know, so I think it's a cultural thing. And then for Amos, I would say I was part of that, part of this thing I'm going to talk about. When I started my women rights activism work and then international development work, I always said, I used the Pareto's rule, where would I make my best investment for a better outcome? And I found out that, first of all, like he alluded to, if you give a woman education, give her skills, give her knowledge, she will always act to her best interest, regardless of what the man says. I keep making this point. And that's why when I was making a lot of investment on women groups, I worked with 9 women groups. I kept on giving them information. I kept on building their skills, negotiation skills. And I told them, if you make yourself much more, should I say, palatable to your husband, if I will use that word, women forgive me, in terms of if you bring income on the income table and the man sees it, and then he sees that he doesn't have to struggle so much to make a life, to make the family comfortable, that the wife is bringing a chunk also of the family income, the chances are that that man, when he wants to lay hands on you, his hand will hang in the air.
He won't even raise it.
Thank you. So I believe that the important thing here is to build women and then give women that information. And I'll give you a specific example of this. About 10 years ago, we had trained a lot of providers across the country on issues of family planning and all that. So we always have what we call a national network of family planning. Listen, let us share lessons, you know, learn from each other. What are the challenges? What are the best proven practices that we have seen so that other people can emulate? Then one provider said, let me share a simple thing that happened. That he was in his hospital one day. A man brought his wife and said he wanted him to remove the IUCD that was in the womb. Now, what was the story behind this? This woman had had 7 children, and the man wanted more. The woman didn't want any more. But this woman had gone to a community sensitization we had done with one of the groups and got this information I'm talking about. If you keep having, first, the 5th child is more dangerous than the 4 pregnancies put together. Yes. The 5th pregnancy. Got all that information, and you have to be alive to train and enjoy the ones. So this woman now went back because her husband didn't want her to do family planning. She on her own went to this and said, look, put that one, my husband wouldn't know. And we had also told our providers, when you put an IUCD, make sure you cut it so short so that the man won't feel it and know that something is there. So this was what happened. For 7 years, she didn't have a child. But the woman, unfortunately for her, the IUCD shifted a little bit. Yeah. So the distance was coming out. So once they were having sexual relationships, so the man was feeling something. Said, what's going on inside there? What's going on inside there? So the woman confessed, I'm sorry, I have an IUCD. So the man said, you must go and remove it today. So they went to the hospital. This man was looking in the consulting room, was making sure that the man removed it and showed it to him. Then he was happy. He now went back and sat in his car waiting for his wife to dress up and come. But you know what this woman did? No. This woman surreptitiously forgot her bag, her handbag, in the doctor's consulting room. The man, the King Kong man, was already sitting in his seat. What? So when she came, the man said, where's your bag? He was one that recognized she wasn't carrying her bag. He said, I'm good, my good husband, let me go and get it. She ran back and said, the doctor, please, not put that. There's the one that they give injection. No plants, yes. She received the hormonal injectable and brought her back. The man was happy. Stupid man, I would say, was now happy. So what this means is that you can see investments. If you talk to so many men about limiting the family size, they don't listen. But we are also trying to The problem we also have...
They don't pay school fees, that's why they don't listen. If they pay school fees, they will know what it means.
Still, there's an underlying factor that we seem to forget at times, is this male son syndrome. Some women are pushed to have more children because they don't have boys. And this man will insist the society says he's not a man unless he has a son. So these women end up losing their lives, having children, you know, trying to please the man that I need a son. And what if they seem to forget that he contributes to the daughters?
That's the thing that drives.
How do we, that's what, you know, again, in strategic communication, that's what you just call label advocacy. How do we address these cultural issues? There's the one of the male King Kong, as Dr. Ejike has said, and then you have a clever woman as well, which is a good development. But this syndrome, to say that, look, somebody must be available to inherit your name, to carry your name forward. You know, sometimes it's common when a woman puts to bed, the first day,
what is she born?
What is she born? Is it that boy? Congrats, congrats. If it is a woman, congrats.
I've delivered of a bouncing baby boy. Why don't you call a girl bouncing?
How do we begin to address this? Look, let's face it, we all have a definite time here on earth. And I mean, there are many important women around the world who are achievers, and you're looking for the names of their fathers. It's an ordeal. How do we overcome this?
Well, thank you very much. You see, my take on that is that, you see, all of these strategies and processes, they should be reinforcing. Originally, I'm a sociologist, and I know that culture is dynamic. And the problem we have here is that, you see, the world is changing, and things are changing, and people are not changing. If I tell you that the people that give birth, multiple births, in Lagos, for instance, as an example of an urban area, are people that came from the rural area to come and live in Lagos. But we forget that traditionally, our foreparents, had methods of limiting births. They had beliefs. You know, you are in hamlets, and they say that when the woman gives birth, you go and stay in that hamlet for 3 months. You cannot meet your husband. If you do, you will die. And then they go there. So for 3 months, there's better spacing. But now you come to Lagos, you cannot rent a house. You rent one room, and everybody is staying together. And so you bring the curtain. And then you bring your...
You are facing another room.
Facing another room.
Face me, I face you.
So you bring your village procreation habits
to a city
like Lagos. And then people begin to suffer. Now, talking about the male child, you see, what is the reason for us wanting a male child? Part of it is economic. Part of it is inheritance. Okay, basically, those are it. Today, if we have more women that are in that position where they can take care of their parents in their old age, and now names don't just vanish. We are beginning to see surnames being attached, you know, compound names being... So the more that we have more of those examples, the more people will change. And then there's the issue of policy. There's something about leadership. You know, the policies of government and the way we implement those policies must be reinforcing. For instance, you say if you have 4 children, you pay so and so tax. If you have 3,
that's what they're doing in Saudi. Yes. In Saudi Arabia, you have to pay tax for all your children.
You pay tax and all of that. So it must be reinforcing. It's not enough to just advocate, because the people are coming from a background. But when they see that what they believe is hurting them, financially, for instance, now the public schools are not as good as the way they were when we are growing. So we all tend to put our children in private schools. Well, you pay 1 million naira in secondary school. When you have 5 children, you have to be...
That's why I said, those who pay school fees, you know what it is.
Yes, I think we need reinforcing strategies. You know, not the ones that you encourage here, then you discourage there. It take a long time for us to crystallize.
Yeah, well, that's just one other point. You know, it still lingers in our polity. Population figures as numbers that you use for purposes of election, for purposes of resource allocation. But the point was also highlighted in the course of this conversation that it is better for you to have a productive demographic population, a demographic number, rather than looking for, just say, primitive acquisition, to say handouts, to say, yeah, we are this number, so we have so many votes. We are this number, so we have so much allocation.
And at the end of the day, we don't plate in hand to international, to donors to
Absolutely. So the more productive numbers you have, the higher potentially your IGR, without you having to wait for the Federation Allocation and Accounts Committee. Gentlemen, it's on that note, we'd like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. First, our deep appreciation to Director Census, National Population Commission, Mr. Usman Kolakbo. Thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, also our thanks to Dr. Ejike Oji, once again appearing on Good Morning Nigeria. He's Chairman, Association for the Advancement of Family Planning. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And last but not the least, Mr. Usaiti Adorin, who is the Assistant Representative of the UNFPA in Nigeria, that's United Nations Population Fund. Thank you for being around on Good Morning
Thank you
Nigeria.
for having us.
Okay, so let's go back very quickly now to our sports desk.